Welcome to Carbon Connects, looking at the challenges Pharma has faced, it currently is facing, and what it will be facing in the future.
You don't want an agency who's chasing revenue and chasing the next project and sees generative AI as a way they're going to make money. What you want an agency to do is the perception of pharma actually massively increased post-COVID, just because suddenly people were engaging with how pharma is currently operating. There are multiple ways to deliver really innovative and interesting experiences while ticking all the compliance boxes, while engaging customers in topics that are relevant and have an impact.
Welcome to this episode of Carbon Connects. I'm here with Morgwn. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your role?
Yeah, sure. I'm the Omnichannel strategy lead for BMS Germany. I lead a team of 7 strategists, and what we do is we partner with our brands in the local business for the end-to-end process, all the way from brand strategy, omnichannel planning, campaign planning, through to content production, tactic authoring, and then actual deployment and execution, data collection, analysis, and insight generation to feed back into the whole omnichannel planning process. I've been in that role in Germany for 3.5 years. Prior to that, I was with BMS for 3 years in Australia. Moved over right in the middle of COVID. But before that, I've got 20-25 years experience of customer experience, digital marketing, business transformation consulting in the UK, Europe and Australia, Asia Pacific, across a whole bunch of industry verticals, none of which were pharma. So financial services, automotive, FMCG, luxury goods, government, healthcare, these kind of things, but no pharma at all. And I really got too old for agency. I couldn't handle the Friday afternoons anymore. I've got a wife and 2 kids, and I quite like the idea of moving client side. And so there was a GM at BMS who was in Australia, who was very forward-looking and could really see the benefits of bringing non-pharma experience into pharma to take the learnings and things that are relevant from sectors like financial services.
That must have been quite a shock though, in terms of coming into pharma and seeing that from other industries and seeing what's happening now in pharma.
There were multiple shocks.
So
it was shock on shock on shock.
Okay, all right.
So
Still shocking?
Sometimes.
Okay.
It depends which meeting rooms you walk into.
Yeah.
But one of the things that drew me to pharma was I've worked on some gigantic brands, huge brands in Australia, things like Bunnings you might be aware of. I worked on Unilever ice creams out of the UK, Ford Motor Company, one or two of the big 4 banks in Australia. So these are all clients with a huge customer base. And something that I found really exciting about pharma is, I went from, potentially 24 million website visitors on Boxing Day for a brand in Australia, down to, there's like 400 oncologists we want to talk to. And these are customers that are potentially a bit skeptical of us and don't like us. We're also operating in a very complex compliance landscape. And I don't know, maybe it's a bit masochistic, but I quite like these constraints. I like the fact that a customer is challenging to reach, that they don't necessarily want to engage with us or don't want to engage deeply with us about the things we want to talk about, that it forces us to have a level of knowledge and customer centricity just to get in the door or in their inbox to have these conversations, and that there's a whole lot of things you can't do. Because I'm a big believer that there's got to be a way through this, and there is a way to execute. And I think the work that I've seen happen, not just within my teams, but across the industry more broadly, is that there are multiple ways to deliver really innovative and interesting experiences while ticking all the compliance boxes, while engaging customers in topics that are relevant and have an impact. And that's just a really exciting place to be. So one of the things that really drew me to pharma is that our products and our services ultimately benefit people's lives, and you can't argue with that. I mean, coming from agency side where we've sold credit cards, I've sold cars, I've sold car tires, I've sold health insurance. These things are broadly the same. There's not much differentiation, and it doesn't massively improve somebody's length or quality of life if they drive a Ford versus a Toyota. But when you're working in pharma and an organization like BMS and so many of the other pharma companies I interact with, they genuinely care about patient outcomes. And it's incredibly exciting to be involved and incredibly rewarding to be involved in an industry where, there's an example of a website that was ready ahead of schedule, which doesn't happen. The website was meant to be launched to coincide with some new data update, but it was ready early. And we as a business made the decision to launch the website as soon as it was ready. And the reasoning was that this website enabled the faster ordering and delivery of an oncology drug. And it was like really eye-opening for me to be able to forecast the impact on life that we had by launching a website early, because ordering through the website made sure that these patients could get to their infusions quicker, which meant they started treatment sooner, which there is evidence that there's clinical trials and data and papers showing that this can increase their quality of life. This can increase overall survival. The fact that they were on drug within 7 days rather than 3 weeks. And to have that because of a website launch, I never thought that the skills and experience I developed outside of pharma could be applicable to have such an incredible impact on the lives of individual patients. And like next to selling Visa cards to 18-year-olds, like this is amazing. So it's a really great place to work. And I think a lot of farmers and BMS as well give you those reminders, they give you those stories. We always have patient advocates and actual patient stories and patients talking to us in our town halls and in our meetings. And it's a really good reminder of why you're working, and it really puts into context, some of the petty, this platform or that, these roles and responsibilities, this process, who really cares? Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is, the BMS vision is improving patients' lives through science. And that's what we do. That's ultimately what we're working for. And it may sound like I'm throwing around a company line, but it's exactly that vision that drew me to Pharma. It's something that, does help you get through 6-hour Teams meetings. And,
But you came over around COVID time?
Yeah, right in the middle of COVID, actually.
So, and we've talked about this before, you lived where my brother,
Yeah.
near where my brother lives now. And that obviously is a culture shock, not only for you as a professional, but for your family as well.
Yeah.
And going into that role, that must have been a lot of change for you, plus COVID. That must have been crazy for you.
Yeah, it was a huge amount. And we still sort of feel some of the consequences of that. So because we were looking for a house in the middle of COVID, we prioritized things like having a huge amount of space in a big backyard. And now we're stuck in this house where things are effectively back to normal. And we've got, should there, touch wood, be another pandemic, we have everything sorted. We have a giant backyard and a trampoline and all this sort of stuff.
And a silo as well.
And actually like there was a winter where the school sent out notes saying we're not, the council is saying we might not be able to guarantee oil and heating and water supply, so please stockpile food and gas and water in your basements. It's still down there. It's a little bit terrifying, but that's how it is.
It feels a little bit like we're going back to the 80s in that respect. But let's talk about
the rationing.
Let's talk about the future and also your role as well within Omnichannel. Where do you see that now, and where do you see that in the next couple of years? And I guess the real question there is, what are you trying to achieve in the next couple of years? Because it's all well and good that you're doing BMS, but actually it's more about you and the legacy you're trying to leave behind within Omnichannel.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Omnichannel is a word that I have a love-hate relationship with.
Yeah.
I like it because it kind of encompasses what we do. What I find strange about it is it's not new. I mean, when there was only one channel, it was still Omnichannel. You just had one channel, and now we have 45 channels, and being present on all of those channels becomes Omnichannel. And in 6 months, we'll probably have 75 channels, and then that's Omnichannel. What's at the heart of it is actually the customer experience and designing a customer experience. And I'm old enough and have been in it long enough that I remember when there were less channels, or when technology was a barrier rather than an amplifier of customer experience. And I think the challenge is maintaining interest and diligence and discipline around delivering a positive customer experience. Because back to your COVID question, the biggest change for me is people started to care.
Yeah.
And
understand,
yeah,
I think as well. I mean, from layman terms, we understood more about health because we had, in England, you had Professor Whitty coming on every single day announcing what was happening, and you had Joe Bloggs saying that they understood and they had an opinion about that. That's very different to the world we had pre-COVID.
Yeah.
I think especially with Omnichannel, we're getting a lot of people going and using a lot of the channels that we use professionally within healthcare in their own personal life as well. So it becomes then about that personal side. How is it affecting me?
Yeah, and we saw a rapid increase in our customers' behaviour.
Yeah.
So their need to access and use digital resources and offline resources, things that were not available to them because they didn't have the face-to-face option. And that, I don't know whether it's chicken and egg, but that led to an internal focus. I mean, within the business, there were people that took the opportunity to not do much, but then most of the business were like, well, I need to keep busy somehow. I can't have meetings anymore, or I can do face-to-face, but there's a lot more time. And so we delivered some really interesting projects, particularly in the early days of COVID, where people still had this momentum and were rapidly reorganizing their launch plans or campaigns. How do we do this without a face-to-face component? How do we do this meeting? So we rapidly increased that technology.
So engaging their brains as well. That mobilization was phenomenal to watch, actually, from a sort of outside point of view. You saw that people were really, really thinking one step ahead to try and keep themselves in their job, basically.
Yeah, and maybe they weren't necessarily at risk, but just to have something to do as well. I mean, if you didn't have children during COVID, what the hell were you going to do with your time?
Yeah, I said to a lot of people that actually the lockdowns were kind of like life from anywhere. I'm not allowed to go out of the house past 5:30 because I've got to feed the kids, get them to bed, so it didn't really change much for me.
In Australia, we were limited to you couldn't get more than 5 kilometres from your house.
Yeah.
And that was madness. I don't know how they would have measured it. My dad actually got in trouble because he was 7 kilometres away from
Oh,
the house.
really?
Yeah, they pulled him up.
The fines were huge as well.
It was crazy.
Huge.
Yeah, but I mean, that was, I mean, this is a COVID conversation now, but we managed to actually maintain the first wave was kept pretty under control because of these really strict lockdowns in Victoria.
Yeah.
And then it just went a bit bananas. But we left. Yeah, we left sort of in the middle of that. So there was a break in the lockdowns one Christmas, and that's when we moved to Germany. There was like 3 weeks where it was open. I had to fill in a form to promise I wouldn't come back within 6 months, you know, because I had to quarantine people. And yeah, that was interesting.
Cool.
But yeah, the big change was like the attention. It used to be that if you wanted to have less work, stop hassling the marketing department to do digital tactics. You know, it's just like, oh, I'm going on holidays in 3 weeks. I'm going to stop reminding the marketers that they have a website, that they should be creating podcasts, that they need to execute this content strategy. And I'll just stop emailing them and calling them, and then the work will dribble off and you can go on holidays for 2 weeks and come back and start chasing them again. There's none of that now.
What I was going to say, how's it changed now?
It's crazy. You know, when I first came to Germany and the office opened up, I had lunch with our general manager just to catch up and say hi. And he was like, okay, so what's Omnichannel? And I kind of talked to him about what our view, the BMS view, and my own opinion of what Omnichannel is.
Does that differ?
Not really, no.
Okay.
No. So the BMS view is it's customer experience. It's the right content through the right channel at the right time to the right customer, and that doesn't change. But within 10 months of that lunch, my GM was sick of the word omnichannel. And now I would have to say that omnichannel is one of the top 3 topics within the business generally in Germany and then the whole business globally. It's something that's consistently mentioned at town halls. Some of the biggest areas of focus and attention and investment in new platforms and people and just general work are happening through related to omnichannel, directly or indirectly. And that's a huge shift to have seen. You know, I wish we didn't have to go through a global pandemic to get there, but I think the fact that Pharma are now looking at this, and an industry with Pharma with the resources that we have, it's pretty formidable. I think I've seen an incredible amount of development and innovation in this space that has brought Pharma much closer to its kind of aspiration of being able to deliver a customer experience that, you know, matches or competes with non-pharma, with FMCG, with automotive, with service providers. We're not there. Absolutely, we are not there. But the building blocks and the fundamentals have been rapidly put in place.
Do you think you're catching up? Because obviously it's going like this, but you know, do you think that Pharma is catching up even though still behind?
I think it has the potential to catch up. I think there's
Is that because of the money? Quite simply?
That's in some ways.
Yeah.
So we not so much lately with the disruption, but due to everything prior to 12 months ago, I would say, we have a an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah.
We tend to buy and contract with the market-leading technology providers. We have Adobe's, we have Salesforce, Viva is the monopoly in CRM, and we have money for consultants and developers to build custom solutions that connect all these things. And so our technology and our stack, the things that we have there to deliver experiences, fundamentally are on a par with, if not better than, like these competitors in other sectors. Where we fall down is probably two things: how well we use them, and then the fact that we tend to buy things from different brands and different shops, and they don't then play nicely together.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a really interesting point about, there's a lot to be said within marketing, especially that, you've got these biotechs doing phase 1, phase 2, and then obviously they want to be sold. They get sold to big pharma, and then you've got to execute a launch plan, but you don't have the backstory. How do you see that changing? Is there any way that can change? Because that seems to be what happens, right?
Yeah.
Somebody finds a molecule, they try to start to commercialize it, somebody buys it, and they go quickly to launch. But how does that fit into your role in terms of omnichannel, and how do you make sure that you're keeping patient-centric, but actually at that time it's a little bit money-making, right, in that respect?
Yeah.
The innovation starts, actually, it's more about acquisition than innovation at the moment, it feels like, at least.
Yeah, and BMS has certainly been, on a bit of a shopping spree over the last 8 to 10 months. So I'm going to be coming up against these problems. I had a conversation actually earlier this afternoon about exactly that. How do we rapidly rescale and integrate this close to launch product? And how do we deliver resources to that? I mean, the primary focus of my role is almost product agnostic.
Okay.
We want to be able to have a solid and flexible foundation of experience platforms or channels through which we can do our marketing excellence, do our launch excellence. So it's broadly product agnostic, but associated with that are a lot of other activities which absolutely do have to be truncated and absorbed within the company and somehow resourced.
Yeah.
And this is things like market preparation and identifying customers. I mean, I don't think pharma, and I'm not speaking from experience here, but it wouldn't make sense for a pharma to quickly, impulse buy a molecule that's targeted at a specialist or a therapeutic area that they don't have some background in. And we're certainly not, suddenly going to launch in a therapeutic area that we have no experience or heritage in, because not only then are you building the awareness and the details, the features and benefits of your product, but you also need to have some kind of legacy and heritage and right to play there. And that builds over time.
Yeah.
So you will see a molecule that starts as a neurological molecule, but then somewhere in the pipeline is a gastro, because these two systems are related. And a company will over time build its right to play in that area. So market preparation is not such an issue, because there's longer term strategies at play in terms of preparing which specialty groups you need to speak to. So a product coming in will usually complement the suite that you've got there. And we are actually able to, I mean, one of the benefits of COVID, or the silver lining, one of the silver linings from the pandemic, is things needed to happen quicker. So no longer could you wait 3 weeks to get new data or a launch announcement delivered through your EDM platform. It needed to be within hours, days, if not hours. And, to their credit, global capabilities, our platform providers or local partners, whoever it is, MLR internally as well, managed to turn that around and go, okay, we're responding to that need. And so we can now deliver things much more quickly. So you've got the combination of faster delivering operating models, focus on quality, we're still meeting our compliance requirements, and you've got a really evolved technology set that can support rapid delivery.
We talk a lot about compliance being a barrier, but you kind of alluded to the fact that it was quite nice for you to focus. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, I just like the challenge of it. And it shifts the complexity. So when you have a blank sheet of paper and you can do literally anything, it's quite difficult there to really express to really.
It's daunting as well, I think.
Well, yeah. And if anything is possible, then where's the challenge in that? You want to just do a campaign talking about this, talking about these products, promoting this. You just can. It's something that can turn around really quickly. And any new channel that comes along, you can jump onto it as soon as possible. I remember we were squatting on Facebook pages for Ford. People were logging into Twitter and registering Twitter accounts in the names of our brands. Like, this is me sitting in an agency doing this, because you needed to squat on these platforms as soon as they were available. And then what are we going to do with it? Gee, I don't know. I kind of like the challenge within pharma and the compliance landscape of going slow to go fast. So sure, securing the usernames, but figuring out what we're going to do with this, because we don't have 25 million customers. I mean, I mentioned earlier, there's 400 target oncologists in Australia. Now there's, maybe more than that in Germany, but it's still, we're not talking tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of customers within an individual market. You don't get that many chances to get things wrong. So you need to be considered. You need to go, okay, these are the channels we can use. These are the strategies we can use, and gradually expand how and where you engage with your customers. Once it's verified as a decent channel or a good way of delivering impact and value for them, but also to find the way to do it compliantly. I had one, and I know I said earlier that I'd never worked in pharma before, but I had one consulting gig with a pharma company in Australia, and I remember that we decided to live tweet our AGM, and that was in 2010, I think 2010, 2011. And I actually had to go to the Australian Stock Exchange and brief them on what it was and tell them what Twitter was and get their opinion on how we could compliantly live tweet our AGM. And I like that kind of thing, that you need to find new and innovative ways to execute on new and existing platforms. It's just a little more considered, and I like that focus. The other side is further to what I was talking about with agency. I found myself spread really thin in that, jumping from a car brand to a mortgage to a health insurance. I really like to understand and get deep into a company and its products, and I didn't feel I could do that anymore. So moving client side gave me that opportunity to really focus on a single entity. I mean, obviously there's a lot of products within it and they're all very different customer bases, but at least dedicating myself to one company forces that focus.
So you talked before a little bit about the 400 oncologists in Australia giving you a bad rap. Why do you think that is? And I guess the real question is, what steps are you taking to try and win back their trust?
I think that's happening organically or naturally. I think a large part of pharma's rap is from the bad old days. Now, it sounds like it was an incredibly fun place to work, but pharma did broadly used to behave quite badly. There were things, there's reasons that our compliance frameworks exist and the reporting around sponsorships of HCPs and these kind of things. There's a reason they exist, because in the past these were loopholes that were exploited and it was not for the benefit of the patients. And there's a long kind of tail of ill will or a shadow that's cast by that. And I saw some data the other week that the perception of pharma actually massively increased post-COVID, just because suddenly people were engaging with how pharma is currently operating. Now that's one thing, is the brand and people's perception of pharma generally as an industry, because it doesn't take much to paint somebody in a bad light if you've only got the headline, if you've got these histories of scandals or bad behaviour. But you don't have to dig much below the surface to understand that most pharma, and I have to say most, but like almost all pharma, are genuinely patient focused and genuinely want to deliver a good outcome. And the only sticking point is that we're commercial entities. We're organisations that are publicly listed. We need to make a profit. But we need to make profit on our products so we can reinvest in the next one, because the compliance and licensing agreements and exclusivity are put in place to control pharma and to control, rampant profit making. So we need to be encouraged or rewarded for exploring and finding the next treatment, the next better treatment. So the profits that we do make, the revenues that are made, are almost entirely reinvested in R&D to find the next one, because we need to think 3, 5, 8, 10 years out, because it takes between 7 and 9 years to get a product from molecule into an actual patient. But the biggest thing for me, so this is like kind of general public view of pharma, and you don't need to scratch much below the surface to see that it's a very different industry to how it was when these bad opinions were formed. But what I kind of see as a key benefit from the compliance landscape that's been set up around pharma is that whether they trust, like, and enjoy interacting with pharma or not, an HCP can absolutely trust what a pharma company says to them, because everything is so diligently monitored and reviewed and approved, and we can't make a claim that isn't backed by streams of clinical data.
Yeah.
Now, I wish that more companies had to deliver that kind of justification for claims they wanted to make. You know, we're not just talking like an asterisk saying, you know, terms and conditions apply, and then 200 words of legalese. We're talking you have to reference the clinical trial data or the real world data or the actual, you know, outputs and outcomes of a rigorously designed, independent, objectively reviewed study. Like, I wish more things and people were held to that level of accountability, which is kind of what terrifies me about AI. I mean, this is a whole other topic. Generally, I mean, you might need to do another episode of it. There's part of me is super excited.
Back, don't worry.
I'm good. There's part of me that's super excited about AI and the idea of generative AI and some of the efficiencies and stuff that can do to enable and really use our customer engagement platforms to more of their potential to deliver these impactful, personalized experiences. Because we can't 10x our content output by 10xing our marketing team. You know, there needs to be some other kind of efficiency. But the other part of me is like, do we lose something if we're not diligently poring over every word? You know, are we actually damaging the trust that we've managed to build with our customers if we are moving into this space where things aren't as, the humans aren't as involved in this process? So, you know, I quite like the idea that, you know, there's 20 pages of references and all these different papers that can justify a claim. We can say X is better than Y in situation Z, and we have to be able to prove it. I wish you could trust everything that came out of every brand or person's mouth as much as you can trust what Pharma says.
My last question for you is something that's obviously personal to you, because you've worked on agency side and then obviously you're now on Pharma side. What can agencies do to up their game? How can they support you in the right way? And where do you need that support?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I don't know if it's possible, because I mean, I talked earlier about agency, and I don't mean to be negative about it. I'm sure it is possible in some constellations. And there's certainly agencies that are structured well to work with pharma. Because I think the way, the most effective agency client relationships I've seen within pharma is where the agency partner on the development, not of the brand strategy, because that's can be taken as a given. You know, some agencies do brand strategy, some don't, some facilitate sessions. But I mean the strategic direction of the company in terms of their customer experience. Because you don't want an agency who's chasing revenue and chasing the next project and sees generative AI as a way they're going to make money in 2024. What you want an agency to do is act as a filter for the right solutions to come in, to act as a partner who is trying to offer you guidance, to be, what's the word we used to call them? I can't remember from my agency.
Solutions to problems. I mean, that's what you want to
say. Future guide, that was it.
Okay.
A future guide. Because we're all busy with our actual products and systems, and we can see a little bit ahead, but agencies are much better at seeing much further ahead.
Yeah.
And helping us stay on a track that goes, these decisions you make today are not going to discount you from these future innovations that we see. So I think an agency that aligns with you on company strategy in terms of your customer experience and doesn't focus on paying the bills month to month, And the other thing is to be dynamic with resourcing. So to be able to quickly throw skills and expertise and people and technology at things faster than pharma can do. There's some things that still move incredibly slowly, and agencies can fill that gap. I mean, they need to manage on their side how they keep their rosters full.
Yeah.
But it's something where it's easier for an agency to bend the rules, to go a bit fast and break things, to get things done, because the stakes are a little bit lower than when pharma try to move fast and break things.
Great. That's all we've got time for.
No worries.
That's it. Thank you so much for joining me.
No problem at all. Great to be here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Cool.
3, 2, 1.
There is a major change of mindset that is happening at the moment in the pharma industry, and that's really a place I enjoy to be, because there are so multiple layers of complexity in the role, but so many opportunities to make a difference. Knowing each other, meeting each other, to inspire each other on activities that will make a difference